All right. Hello, everyone. I guess we're gonna go with the usual again. I'm new to the whole streaming thing, so confirmations on audio and video and everything. I would appreciate that. Do you see the Canva with the design? Do you hear me? Hello, hello. All right. Uh, do you hear me just fine? Do you see the screen just fine? Perfect. Perfecto and fantastic. Okay. So the just a quick intro of the objective of this stream. This is basically meant to have more of a casual conversation about flows. If you have any use cases that we can cover, if you have any questions to answer, any problems, anything that we can talk about, any of the challenges from my flow course that you're struggling with, you need help with, or just like any flow talk, I will always prepare a use case or something to cover during the live stream, unless someone has a question or anything that you would like us to look at. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead with what I had prepared. If you would like us to cover something else towards the end of this stream, or maybe in future streams, please let me know. I'll take note and I will prepare something for that. Feel free to stop me anytime. Yeah, feel free to stop me anytime if you have any questions. I see your comments. I read them as I go. I'll check them every now and then, but I keep my eye on the comments all the time. I know about Agent Force, but I have not done anything related to Agent Force at all. I'm planning to learn about that at some point, but in the meantime, my knowledge is very limited. Okay, so I want to talk about schedule triggered flows for a little bit because I've been seeing a little bit of misunderstanding of how schedule triggered flows work. And I wanted to cover that. I recently received an error, a heap error from a colleague of mine. And a heap, as far as I understand, is basically memory allocation, which are topics that people coming from programming and development background would understand. But we admins might be a topic that we are not exactly familiar with. But this basically comes down to assigning data types, assigning memory to data types. When you create a text field at the object level, you have the option to specify the number of characters. So you can say like this is 100 characters only. This is like 255 for text data type. The maximum is 255, which doesn't seem to have any consequences. Like you can make it to 255, you can make it 100, which doesn't make much of a difference. But in fact, under the hood, what gets happen is that the one that has a size of 255 requires more. I mean, like everything I say is my understanding of how things work under the hood. Some amazing developer out there can jump in and explain these things further. But basically, if you create a text variable with 255 characters, that uses more memory than one that's at 100. And same thing with numbers and digits. That's why we have an integer. And like from a programming perspective, we have an integer and we have decimal and we have long or maybe double, things like that. So like all of these are just numbers. When you create this from the object manager, you just select a number and then you specify the decimal places and then the length of the number data type. So under the hood, all of this counts a little bit towards memory allocation. What is the consequence of, like, why should I care about how much memory it is using? It's more of a long-term scale at scale kind of thing. If it's a small org when the volume of records is fairly small, then there's no problems. But when you start dealing with hundreds and then thousands and then millions of records, then things like every bit of performance is going to be important. And if you don't need 255 characters, then you need to reduce that to 200. If you don't need a number with like a 1000 length of numbers, then you just make it less than that. If you are, for example, creating a number field or a text field for an ID, for example, and you know that the ID would never be more than 18 characters, then just make it 18 characters. Don't make it more than that. So under the hood, it's not under the hood. It's gonna make some difference, and you're gonna see that difference as the org grows. As a consultant, I work with companies that are starting to use Salesforce for the first time. So we typically just like build the system for them, but we have to be conscious of after 2 years from now, after 5 years of now, they are not supposed to see problems. So we need to account for that large volume from now on. And when you build flows, now like this is an error that someone reported to me recently, a heap error, a memory allocation error. So they were running a scheduled triggered flow, and I'll just tell you like what message I received, and then you can think about it before we actually look at all of that. So a memory allocation problem, like an error that's like a scheduled triggered flow that runs. They were attempting to add leads to campaigns, like a very simple thing, like for every certain record, create a lead for this person and add them as a campaign member to a certain campaign. And then they were getting into a heap or memory allocation error. Basically, something that they were doing is that and maybe like now is the time to talk about scheduled triggered flows and how they work. When you run a scheduled triggered flow, it's going to ask you to specify the object in the entry and the start element. And this is the part that makes a very big difference if you are attempting to create a scheduled triggered flow. And this is a flow that runs at a certain interval. If you want a scheduled flow to run every night, every day, every bi-daily, bi-weekly, something like this. So you can set a flow to run at that time. So we can set the schedule just fine. And then the frequency, you would like this to run on daily basis or something. And just very quickly, like I said, bi-weekly, I said bi-daily, you can do these things, but the way you would do it is you would create a formula, and at the object level, not here, at the object level, you would create a formula, for example, to make it like every other day, or maybe like, yeah, every other day, you can create a formula to check if like today is the 2nd of the month, and then if it is the 4th of the month, and so on. And if that's the case, then it returns true. And you make the flow run daily, you make it run daily, and then in the conditions in here, at whatever object, you're gonna add the formula here, whatever formula we create, to be equal to true, just like a quick thing. So you can make it actually run bi-daily, or like whenever a certain condition is met. It doesn't have to be exactly daily and weekly. And we anticipate that yearly and other frequencies are going to be added to flows at some point in the future. Back to our topic now. Like, this is the part that makes the difference. Like, should we specify an object in here or should we not? Like, what does that mean to specify an object in here? That's a scheduled triggered flow. It's going to run every night, and then it gives us the option to select an object. Should we select an object or should we not select an object? Let's go with the option that we're not going to select an object. So what's going to happen is that this flow is going to run only one time. This is going to run one time, and it's going to do whatever you ask it to do in here. If you want to like create some stuff, you just use a create element and create some stuff. Pretty straightforward. Every night it's going to run one time, and it's going to do this. Now, if you select an object in the entry criteria here, or in the start element, if you select an object like account, and then I'm not selecting any conditions in here. If you select an object, what's going to happen now, it's not going to run one time. It's going to run the number of records in the system of the object account. If we have 10 account records in the system, it's going to run 10 times. And these are called flow interviews. So this is going to run 10 flow interviews. If we have 10 accounts in the system, it's going to run 10 flow interviews. And I will say this now, and then we'll expand on this further in a little bit. For each one of those flow interviews, if you have a DML, and a DML stands for data manipulation language, which means create, update, or delete. Whenever I say DML, I'm talking about a create element, an update element, or a delete element. So if you have any one of those three, if you have any DML in the flow, let's say that at the end of this, for every account, we create one opportunity. So there is like a create element that says create opportunity. Now, and we have 10 accounts in the system, assuming that. Basically, eventually, we're going to have 10 opportunities. When were these opportunities created? So the flow, this flow, we said it's going to run 10 times. So it's going to create the every opportunity, 10 opportunities, one and then one and then one and then one. And the way this works is that at the end of every flow interview, and this is an important statement, at the end of every flow interview, the opportunity does not get created. The first flow interview, so like we're going to have some logic in here. Flow interview, it goes through, create opportunity, it doesn't get created. The second one, it doesn't get created. The third one, it doesn't get created until all the 10 are complete, and then it goes and creates all 10 together. This is called bulkification. And the schedule triggered flow do that automatically. I want to now go back to Canva and show you this with a visual, because all of this is just like confusing. Just I'm going to pause for a second, look at the comments, and then I'm going to come back to this. Some data types hold more memory. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that Discord thingy. It took me like some time to get used to YouTube, so I'll see about that a little later. Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean, like Sean shared here, like it's a rule of thumb to never use a pink element or a DML statement inside the loop. And as a matter of fact, something like a way some other people would put it, and it's actually true. Like a scheduled triggered flow is like a big loop. When you say run on 10 accounts, it is as if you already created a loop, and now this flow that we're looking at, this is inside the loop. So we're going to loop the loop through the list of accounts in the system, and for the first account, this is what we need to do, and then for the second account, this is what we need to do, and then for the third account, this is what we need to do, and so on. So as a matter of fact, it's a big loop, but the rule of thumb that Sean shared earlier doesn't apply to this specific use case, because the schedule triggered flow is going to perform the bulkification for us, and we don't have to worry about it. I'll explain to you in a minute what that means. But outside of schedule triggered flows, it's generally considered the best practice to never use a DML inside a loop. So we built a schedule triggered flow in which like we're doing something. We're creating an opportunity, like we said. So this is called a flow interview. And I'm gonna talk about why I'm putting this dollar sign in here in a second. But now I wanna move a little bit to this. That's fine. I'll just grab all of it like that. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 accounts, and we're saying that for each one we're creating an opportunity. What happens under the hood now? This is the first flow interview. So schedule triggered flow is going to go to this first account, and then it's going to run through the logic. In our just like example, we're creating one opportunity. So it's creating an opportunity. That opportunity doesn't get created yet. That record gets added to a batch. It gets added here. So it doesn't get created yet. It's not committed to the database yet. It gets added here. And then the second one is the logic for the second one goes through. It creates an opportunity. This opportunity gets added in here. This is the second record now. And this is not the same. I should not add this. This is not like the same record that triggered the flow. This is just an opportunity, a different record. Unless you are updating the same record that started the flow, then it would be the same record. This is a different record. These are accounts, these are opportunities. So we added, because we said only 10 accounts or 5 accounts, all of them got added here. And then once we have up to 200, one batch by default has 200 records. Once we have 200 records, after 200 flow interviews, the flow is going to commit to the database, and then it's going to start another batch. So if you have 201 records, the first 200 are going to get committed, and then the second one is going to be committed on a second batch. And if you have like 401, then you're looking at 3 batches, and so on. It keeps like creating records in batches. So now, when you work with a scheduled triggered flow, the best way to look at it is to think that you are looking at only one record at a time. So we said like we're looping through a list of accounts, and assume that you're running only like a record triggered flow in which you are performing operations on only one record. And you would notice that when we select account like this, and we attempt to do anything, you will notice that we have something called triggering account. This is a global variable. If you actually click on that, it looks with a $sign like this. So this is called a global variable. And that global variable triggering account is the current account in the loop. This is the current flow interview. So basically a scheduled flow is a big fat loop that we are iterating through, except that it does bulkification for us. How do you feel about this? Does it make sense? Is it clear? I just want some feedback before we move on and we pick up an example. If you can also think of an example that we can run scheduled triggered flow for, or we can just go with the example that we were just talking about. Does that make sense? Do you see what's the reason behind building like that? Why would we use an object in the start element, or why not? I do know that live streams have a little bit of a delay, maybe like 60 seconds or so. So I'll just resume, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. So let's go ahead and like create one opportunity for each account. We're gonna create one opportunity for each account. I don't know if there is an actual business use case for such a thing, but just for the purposes of demoing this. So I'm gonna go through. We set this to run on daily basis, and then we're running it on every account in the system. And I wonder how many accounts we have, but we can look at that later. So we're gonna assign one opportunity, and then we're gonna create it. So let's do that. To create an opportunity, I'm gonna first create a record variable to store the information for the opportunity. And remember, when we create a record variable in the flow, that's not the actual record in the database. We're just creating it in the flow. Until we use a create or update or delete elements, then this doesn't get committed to the database just yet. So I'm going to create from the resources panel here a new opportunity variable, record variable underscore opportunity. And this is opportunity here. I like to name things like this. I know people have different preferences. So this is the record variable opportunity. Now this opportunity is empty. There is nothing in it whatsoever. We're going to use an assignment element to start putting values in there. So I'm going to say assign opportunity. And after I click that opportunity, we can access the fields of that record variable. Remember, we are not doing anything in the database yet. All of this is just in the flow. And I think let's just populate the important the required fields, and we don't have to worry about anything else. And one nice enhancements from recent updates is that if you were to do it manually like this, and you know what, let's actually do that. Let's get rid of this. Let's not use this just to save time. Let's select use a create element instead, and then select manually to select the object. We're going to create an opportunity. And the nice thing about this is that it auto-populates the required fields in here so that we don't have to try to remember what these were. Let's say create opportunity. And the close date, there are other global variables that we haven't talked about. One of them is flow. Which one is it? Running flow interview. And then there's the current date. I'm just going to use this one so that we don't have to construct a date. And then for the name, we can just use the triggering record. That's the account name. So it has the same name as the account. And the stage, we can set this to closed one. And let's just add amount as well to 500. So even though we know that we want to eventually create 10 opportunities, even though we know that we want to create 10 opportunities, I'm just repeating myself because it looks like my internet is not the best at this time. We need to create 10 opportunities, but the way we're building is that we're assuming that we're working on only one record. Assume that you're only working on one account and act accordingly. For one account, I want to create one opportunity, so I'm creating one opportunity and only one. I don't have to worry about the other 9 because the schedule triggered flow is going to bulkify automatically. It's going to take the first one and the second one and all the 10, and then it's going to put them in one batch automatically. So it's going to do the bulkification for us. So this is basically the flow. We can attempt to save this. Let's just create opportunity for each account, daily or anything. Another nice update from recently is that we can debug we can select a record to do that for. So I'm just going to select any account from the system. I can select rollback so that it doesn't commit to the database. It runs and then I can read the debug logs and I need to find if there's any problems or not before I actually go live with this. I mean, we typically want to build in sandboxes anyway. So it has gone through. It has created the account just fine for this one. When you debug, it runs on only one record. It doesn't run on multiple. We have to activate to make it run for every record in the system. Okay, what was I trying to do? Now I wanted to see how many accounts we have in the system. It's not exactly relevant to flows, but I use Salesforce Inspector to do things like that, just to quickly find out stuff. So I can do an export of accounts to see how many accounts we have. We have a total of 17 accounts. So we can actually activate this flow and make it run. So it's going to run one for each one of those records. Let me know if you would be interested in testing this or testing a different scenario. I'm looking at your comments now. We use, yeah, I mean, scheduled triggered flows can be used to update records and to alert people. An example is if you have a list of cases that are in high priority that have not been resolved for maybe like 2 days, then alert leadership to fire the person responsible or something like that. Just like to resolve it for the customer. We don't want them to wait that many days. But I mean, like, this is the kind of thing I wouldn't like that exact use case that I just mentioned. I wouldn't use an object in the start element, because if you were to use and this is a good use case actually. If you were to use a send element here, like send the email. If you were to send an email to leadership or like create a customer notification, there would be a problem with this. Like the way we have this set up here, like we have selected an account in the start element and then we're sending an email. Let's say that we're actually running it on every case. Let's do that. And I want you to tell me what the problem is. If we were to find all cases that are not does not equal closed, and then email leadership, there is a problem with this. What do you think the problem is? Email leadership. I'm just gonna put anything in here. The way we have this set up now, assuming that we're solving for that use case, like for every open case in the system, we need to alert, like we need to alert leadership of open cases in the system, maybe every day or something. What's the problem with this setup here? I'll talk about the other example mentioned until we get some answers on this. Um, yeah, I think you got it right, but if you could elaborate a little bit on it, it would send it out to all records. So let me ask it a little bit differently. If we have 10 cases that are open, if we have 10 cases that are open, what's the problem there? Email spam. Yeah, I mean it's gonna send out 10 emails. This particular way of building it, it's gonna send 10 emails. Remember, it's running one flow interview per case. So it's going to run 10 emails. In that particular use case, you wouldn't want to use start element, the object in the start element. Instead, you would actually just like perform one get. Like that, without an object here, it's going to run only one time, and we need to query all the cases in here. So get the cases where the status is not closed, and then use that information to send an email. You can count them. You can just like send one email to look at them. Um, um, what do we mean by bulk email? We like send one email that contains all the cases, for example. No real filter to narrow down. To narrow down the cases, I mean, we can narrow down cases with collection filter if needed. If we're talking about narrowing down the number of records, if you'd like us to look at the collection filter element, we can do that. Uh, yeah, I um I know that we can. So the way we have this here. So the question is like, can we collect all cases and then put them together in one email? And we can. There's just like one thing that I don't remember. I'll get to it now. So basically, we get the cases. Now we have all the cases that are open in the system, and I need to select all records down here. And we don't want to do that. We always want to do one of these two. Like typically, I choose the one in the middle so that I can select the fields that. And this also, like we haven't answered the question about the memory allocation error. Now, the something that other people would do is that for some reason they would populate the running object. I want to talk about the heap error, the memory allocation error, where it likely came from. Assuming that we're going through the list of cases in the system, and then we're doing this. Like I think that's what was happening before. You go through, you selected the object case. Now I shared with you today that this here means that we're looping, but maybe it's not a known thing, and maybe I would hope that maybe it's been mentioned here. So this will run for a batch of records, a flow interview. I mean, it's actually mentioned here, but I guess it requires some visual explanation to get that. But I don't know, maybe like it's understood that you just selected the object that this flow is going to run on for whatever reason. Anyway, like this is how other people have built scheduled trigger flows. And the problem here is that for each case, it's gonna get all cases. And the way get elements work in flows is that it actually stores these cases in record variables. You notice here to the left side, it says record collection variable. It says cases from get. If you create another one, let's do another get. You'll notice now there is no other record collection variable nor record variables. But if I were to get an account, for example, now you'd notice that this got created in here. So it has created a record variable. I'm making an assumption here that this also uses memory. This also uses memory. So when the flow runs in this, let's delete this. If the flow runs in this shape, and we have say 200 records, just to limit it to one batch. We have 200 accounts in the system. I'm sorry, what are we doing? We have 200 cases, and for each case we get all the cases in the system. We have 200 cases, and then we get 200 cases per case. So this is 200 times 200. And then that number of records are stored in the flow as record variables. This is my assumption now. All of this consumes memory. You don't need to get all cases for each case. Instead, you would put these criteria in here, and you don't have to use another get in here. That's like what we were talking about earlier. So I think this is what's causing the heap or memory allocation error. All right, back to the point where we were saying that we would like to send one email in which we have the list of cases. Now, we've got all the cases in here. And we're going to send an email. And in the email, we have the body. This is where we need to list the cases. And we're going to use a text template for that. We're going to create a new resource. And we're going to select text template. This is where a text template is where you would use rich text. So this is text template body. And we'd like this to be to go in here now. Would like this to go in here. Dear person, this is the list of open cases. Now there is a way to list all of them in here, and it involves HTML and creating a new row for each one. I'm trying to remember how to do that. I'm gonna like research it right now, but as far as I remember, I would loop through. Maybe the loop happens in the text element. I'm not sure. I will loop through the cases, and I'm looping through all the cases, and then I'm gonna create a line of HTML. So basically, like, let's actually look at how to create like a table in an HTML. Create a simple table in HTML. Just want to show you something interesting. And I hope that my history of search here is not showing something that I shouldn't be sharing. Okay, so this is a simple table in HTML. You don't have to know HTML for all of this. I'll just show you some nice trick. Let's copy the body from the beginning of the body to the end tag of the body here. And then I'll go back to that text template. And you see here, it says view as rich text. You can flip this to be plain text, which is basically HTML. And this is all just new lines, paragraphs and new lines. I'll just get rid of all of this for now. And then I'll just paste that table. Now, if I go back to this, there is a table. I want to have some borders to it. Add borders. Stop. Add borders and make it inline CSS. Basically, in here, when we do actual development, we have CSS is how you make it visually good. How you change the visuals of of whatever it is that, like this is the table. We need it to be colorful and stylish and whatnot. We use CSS for that, and HTML is just the structure. And we typically, when you do development, you have these two in two different files, and this is what ChatGPT was trying to do. And because I don't have two files, and here there's only one, so I needed to include the CSS as part of the HTML, and this is what I asked it to do, just to write it to write the CSS. This is the CSS to write it inside the HTML itself. Now I'm just going to copy this body in here. Sorry, it needs to be in the plain text. Now, if I were to go back to rich text, it looks like that. Now, the part that that we need is to have a row for each case. Now, we need a row for each case, and the way you see here, we have in HTML. I'll just break this down very quickly. We need to create a table. So every thing in HTML has a starting tag like this, and then there's going to be an ending tag. So this is a table. Like HTML is a very easy language to learn. You can just like learn it in 30 minutes. You know, like getting used to it might take a little bit more time, but it's fairly easy. And then we're creating a table, and then the table constructs of a header. That's like the first row. That's the beginning of the header, and that's the end of the header. And then a body. That's every other row after the header, and every that's like the entire table below the head. Each one is a row. So this is a table row, and this is the ending, and then this is the table data now for each column. So because we have three columns, so this is the first column, this is the second column, this is the third column. So the way we would do that, as far as I remember, is we would basically go through each we're gonna create like one text. That's the body. No, that's not the case. We're gonna create one text. You know, like I'm gonna experiment now. I'm experimenting live. Interesting. Let's do that. Basically, for each case, we need one of these. For each case, we need one of these. And let's make it also three things. This is name, age, and city. Let's not do that. Let's change this to change columns to only two columns, and name those two columns. I need case name and no, not maybe like case number and case status. I hope it doesn't just go back and create a separate CSS. It does this mistake sometimes. Just to simplify, I'm reducing them to two only. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to copy this body, and I'll just go back here, and let's get rid of all of this and just make it two. Okay. Looks good so far. Looks good so far. So we're going to need to like this part here, all these rows. No, I'm sorry, from here. These rows here. So the part inside the body. I'd like this part to be every case. So we're going to create, this is one text variable. We're going to create one text variable in which we put this information. And that text variable, we're going to get it from the loop. I want to show you like what's going to look like. So let's create, I'm experimenting. I mean, like, don't take anything I'm saying now for granted. Like, this is on the internet. If you can research this, you will find it. I'll go down here, the part where it says body, and I'll make it empty. So this is the body. So the body is empty now. And then I'm going to put a text variable in here. I'll create a new text variable. Text variable, that's email. Let's say HTML cases. This is just the text now. And I'd like to, so right now, why did it put it up top? And maybe after we actually feed it with data, let's see. Now that text variable is currently empty. So what we're going to do is that we're going to go through the first case, and then we're going to add this to it, or like this entire row. And what we need to feed in here is the case number, and what we need to feed in here is the case status. Case number and case status. Okay. And so we're gonna need to concatenate. I'm thinking that the way I'm thinking about this is that I'm gonna have this prepared in one variable, and then I'm gonna concatenate the case number in here, and then I'm gonna concatenate the end down here, and then I'm gonna repeat the same thing for the second line. So let's say table data, the beginning of the table data, the beginning of the table data. Let's try to make this just like one column. I feel like this is going to take some time. Make it only one column for case number. Give me the body tag only. Okay, let's just make it case number only, just to save some time. And back here, this is the plain text. And table row. This is the table body, and then I want to get rid of this here. Replace this with spaces don't matter with this. Okay, now we're gonna need to start populating that variable that I just created with this stuff. So let's say that first thing we are starting here. We're gonna concatenate it with this part, with this part here. In here, assignment, I'll add, I'll just name it first part. That text variable, and then I'm gonna add this to it. This like in the tag to it. And then the second piece is gonna be add the case number, add current item in the loop, case number. And then I'm just gonna add to it the third piece, or like the last piece, and that is this part here, and then we need to close it like this. Right, what we did so far is that we have this in the body. So this is the first column. I'm sorry, this is the first row. And then it's going to repeat this for all of them. So the second case is going to have this one. The third case is going to have this one. And that should be sufficient, it seems like. Yeah, I mean, like it's rare to do this. Maybe there might be an easier way to do this. And we're experimenting. I mean, like I could prepare this for another session, but I also wanted to share like what goes through my mind when I have a requirement that maybe like I didn't know how to approach, or maybe I have to experiment with. So let's try this. Let's try this. I'm gonna debug and see what happens. Let's first make sure that we have some records, some cases in the system. Case. Okay, we have some cases in the system. Let's debug and see what happens. I'm gonna run it in rollback mode. I just wanna read the, just like anything. I assume there is one. Really, just show me anything. Leave it on. Really? Okay. I just find anything in the database to use. Okay, let's run this. Um, this error here, the flow failed to access the value case number because it hasn't been set or assigned. It means that when you use the get element that you did not retrieve this field. So we just need to go back here and then retrieve the case number. It's like attempting to access a field that doesn't exist in the flow because you haven't retrieved it. Another time you might encounter this error is that if you don't have access to it, if a user doesn't have access to this field in the eyes of the flow, as if the field doesn't exist. Okay, it's fine that we're getting the error here. What we need to write to read is this part here, which doesn't look very nice. Anyway, let's you know what? Let's send an email out. Just send it to myself. Let me open the email first. Just check my emails to make sure I don't also share something else. Okay, email. Where is the recipient? This is where I'm going to put my personal email, or I don't even remember my shortcut. ED. Okay. Let's send this email. Let's debug again. I'll open the email on a second screen and then I'm just gonna pull it in here. Did it fail again? Okay. I'm rolling it back, right? I'm rolling it back. If for the email to go out, we actually need to. We can't run it in rollback. Send the email. It's not coming through. I'm not getting the email. Why is that? The tool I'm using is Salesforce Inspector. I'm just like performing a quick export. You might need to write SOQL in here, which is very easy to learn as well. It's like if you can get the grasp of it very quickly. I typically go for cheat sheets for things like that. Why are you not sending an email out? Is it email deliverability? I'm confirming that it is sending it to my email. And let me check. I think a couple of things I want to look at. Let me refresh to see if this error is actually a thing. One thing I want to look at is the process automation settings. You need to have a default workflow user specified for scheduled flows to run. That's one thing. So let me populate that. And another place I would check is the email deliverability. I think it's just called deliverability. Deliverability. And we need to make sure that this is set to all email. Typically when you're working in a sandbox, you set it to no access so that no emails go out. You don't want to send bulk stuff by mistake. See, it says here for a scheduled flow to run, you need to specify the default workflow user. I just did that. Okay, that's fine. Performance issues, is it because I'm getting yeah, you see, this is why, like, because in scheduled triggered flows you typically filter in the start element. That's why it's showing this. Automated process user has no email address. This is the part here. Process automation settings. ED. This is the automated process user email address. I think it's not going to accept it either because I need to add it as a org-wide default. I'll just do that very quickly. I went astray in this session. I know. I'm sorry. Just verifying my email address. 1 second. I know we're almost at time, and we might resume this next time, but I just try to cover as much as possible before the end. Okay, so I just verified that. Now let's go to process automation settings again. And I'll just add, not this one. And so we're done with this. Let's refresh to see if we're going to get any of those errors. Now it's down to 1 warning, which is good. Now let's debug. Just any case, no rollback. I just actually want to receive the email. And I got the email, but I get the email that looks stupid. Looks in plain text. That's because down here we need to say on the rich formatted, we need this to be true so that it's actually in not in plain text, but rather in rich text. So let's send it again. Run. Let's see. Okay, that looks like a success. Right, look at that. So we've got the case number. We've got the first case number, the second case number, and the third case number. I was not anticipating this to work the first time like this. That almost never happens in real life. When you do something new, it typically fails the first time. But this is good, and we didn't have to use like any third-party app or anything for it. So it's you can add to it now. So like it's the same concept. We're basically constructing this. We're basically constructing the HTML side of things. And like I said, HTML is something that you can learn in the syntax at least in 30 minutes. And you can ask ChatGPT to build stuff for you. I honestly use ChatGPT quite often. But you know, like the only thing that I do is that I just need to make sure that I understand what it is giving me or study a little bit about it before I actually use it. And quite often it actually like gives you something that doesn't work, or like it's not the good thing. If you're worried about it, then just you don't have to use it. And like something very important here, just be very mindful about customer information, just to take that part of the customer information out, and then you send it whatever it is you need. Let's I mean, I think that's pretty much it for today. If you have any questions about any of this, just take a look at the chat for any messages that I have missed. If you have any questions, let me know. If you'd like us to look at a particular use case in the future, then let me know in the comments as well. So one question here is that what if there are more than 100 cases open? So it depends on how we are sending the email. If we are running the scheduled triggered flow once, and then in that one iteration we're getting all the cases, and then we are putting them together in one email, then it's not going to fail. Oh, you're talking about the SOQL 101. No, I mean, one get element uses one SOQL regardless of how many records it is returning. I mean, there is a limit on the number of records that are being returned. It's 50,000 as far as I remember. So when you use a get element on cases, unless you have more than 50,000 cases that are open, which is a big problem business-wise, but there is no limit. There is a limit of 50,000 records returned by each one SOQL, which is one get element. So it's not going to throw an error in that case. If you are not building scheduled triggered flows the correct way, by using one get, by specifying the object in the start element, and you have 100 cases in the system, and for each one case you're actually getting the cases, then this is going to consume 100 get 100 SOQL. So it's gonna at 101 it's going to throw an error of SOQL 101. Advanced, yeah, I mean I jumped into the whole idea section about putting the list of cases in one email. Sudan asked that in the chat. The tool I'm using is Salesforce Inspector. That's all the questions in the chat. Thank you everyone for today. It was amazing. I enjoyed this conversation very much. Until we meet next time, you all have a lovely day. Bye bye.